If you're here, you already know. This channel isn't for those who sleep with the lights on. Here we go all the way down the dark road that no one wants to travel. But if you, like me, feel that pull toward the inexplicable, then buckle up, keep your eyes wide open, and come with me on a path of no return. This story is long, but every detail matters. And in the end, maybe you'll never be the same again. My name is Eduardo Calazans. I'm 38 years old, and I work as a maintenance agent on abandoned railways. It's a lonely job, but I like it. I've always preferred remote places, silence, and old dust. 2 years ago, I was assigned to monitor a railway line cutting through one of the most isolated areas of continental Scotland, a mountainous region called Arkan Ridge, known among the old-timers as the Broken Track, a forgotten stretch covered in moss and fog that they say should never have been built. My supervisor warned me, with that half smile of someone who doesn't believe it but repeats what he's heard. If you hear bells at midnight, ignore them, and never stop between the twin tunnels. At the time, I thought it was just another local tale to scare rookies. But I would learn, the hard way, that Arkan Ridge has its own rules, and it doesn't forgive those who break them. The first week, everything seemed normal. I spent my days inspecting track segments, replacing corroded plates, and checking tunnels. The place had a somber beauty, trees twisted by the wind, fog that never lifts, and a silence that seems to scream in the deepest parts of your soul. But on the 8th day, while crossing the northern tunnel, I noticed something strange about the echoes. The sound of my boots came back with an irregular rhythm, as if it was delayed. But what froze me was the sound that followed. 3 bells. Weak, distant, like small church bells ringing out of sync, and I was alone, completely alone. That night, I stayed in a small railway cabin used by technicians for decades. I slept with the light on and the radio playing. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up to a sharp noise, like wood cracking, and a strong smell of burnt iron. When I got up and looked out the window, I almost stumbled backwards. There was a figure standing about 15 meters from the cabin, wearing what seemed like an old winter coat with the hood down, and no shadow. Yes, the full moon cast shadows everywhere, except on him. That wasn't the worst part. The worst was what happened when I lay back down and closed my eyes, trying to convince myself it was a hallucination. I turned to the side, and there, burned into the wooden wall beside the bed, was something that chilled my blood. First route, failed. In the days that followed, I found out this was just the first of 3 routes, and all of them would lead me deeper and deeper, into a terror no one had ever explained. One by one, my colleagues started leaving the area. First Tomas, who disappeared without a trace. Then Hilda, who quit her job and was never seen again. I should have left too, but something was pulling me to that place, as if I had been chosen. In the 3rd week, I found something even stranger. While cleaning the southern sector of the railway, I found a rusty door embedded in a rock. It wasn't on any maps. The doorknob was covered in moss, but the latch was clean, as if someone opened it often. Against all logic, I opened it. The stench of rot and wet earth hit my face. On the other side, a spiral staircase descending into nothingness. I walked down for what felt like minutes, counting 74 steps until my feet touched stone ground. Then I saw it, an underground platform, where the remains of a rotting carriage lay on rails leading nowhere. Everything there was weird. The geometry made no sense. Crooked pillars holding up nothing, and shadows moving without light. When I approached the carriage, I heard the voice for the first time, deep whispered, like it was inside my skull. It said, "You passed the 2nd route." I looked around, but no one was there. Still, one of the carriage's doors creaked open by itself. Curiosity won. I entered, and inside I saw what shouldn't be seen. A pile of soaked clothes and dirty shoes, as if dozens of people had entered and never left. And then I felt it. Someone, or something, was breathing right behind me. The instant I felt that hot, muffled breath on my neck, instinct screamed louder. I spun around with my flashlight raised, but there was no one, nothing, no footprints. The carriage floor was dry, despite the musty smell, and the air, though thick, showed no movement. Then I noticed a detail I had missed. On the rusty ceiling, dozens, maybe hundreds of hooks, like those used in slaughterhouses, hung in threatening silence. Some still had scraps of fabric, and one, in particular, a small intact blue child's bracelet, swayed slightly. I left without looking back. I don't remember climbing the 74 steps back. I only realized I was running when I tripped over a dry branch near the tracks and fell to my knees. My fingers had gone numb. The cold seemed to come from inside my body. There was something in that place, something that wasn't content to just be seen. It infiltrated, it infected, it changed. When I finally got back to the cabin, there was a mark carved into the door with some sharp tool. 2nd route opened. That night I didn't sleep. I locked every crack in the cabin, turned off the radio, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave. At 2:43 a.m., I heard the sound of rails twisting, cracking as if something very heavy was slowly moving over them. When I looked out the window, I deeply regretted it. A carriage moved down the track, heading towards me. No locomotive, no driver, just sliding. as if pulled by an invisible magnet. But the strangest thing wasn't that. It was what was inside. Human figures, standing still, but even from a distance, seeming to stare at me. All had their eyes covered with red cloth. They say fear paralyzes. Lies. True terror makes the body act on its own. I ran to the radio and tried to call the control center. Dead silence. When the carriage stopped a few meters from my cabin, the building's lights flickered. 1, 2, 3 times, then went out. I stayed in the dark for long minutes, waiting for the worst. Then, as if obeying a silent command, the carriage slowly reversed and vanished back into the fog as if it had never been there. Dawn brought only more questions. And a warning. Hanging from the front door's knob, I found a note written in shaky letters. Do not attempt the third route, or it will be your last. But deep down, I already knew there was no choice. Arkan Ridge had chosen me, not the other way around. The next morning, something even more sinister happened. My only sector colleague Olive disappeared. An experienced tracker, former environmental inspector, now doing track maintenance, always careful. When I checked his base, I found only his flashlight, untouched lunchbox, and a recorder. With trembling hands, I hit play. The recording was noisy, but his voice was clear in some parts. There on the ceiling, empty eyes, not human. The train. The train doesn't need rails. They know my name now. The rest was muffled crying, followed by a long scream, and a phrase in a language I'd never heard before. Then I noticed something behind the recorder, written in charcoal on the wall of his base. Third route, crossed. That's when I understood Olivier had tried, and hadn't returned. That night I put fear aside. Rage took its place. I grabbed my backpack, extra flashlights, a machete, and set off along the railway to the stretch known as the Twin Tunnels 2. Identical tunnels side by side that were never on official maps. Local legend says whoever enters one never comes out the same side, and so it was. I entered the left tunnel at 11:19 p.m. and the world changed. The tunnel's interior defied known physics. It was narrow at first, but expanded as I walked, with walls that breathed. Yes, as if the stones had life, pulsating gently like a giant lung. My footsteps no longer echoed. And the smell? My God. The smell was of old blood and damp earth. After 14 minutes walking, I heard footsteps behind me. When I turned, I saw something that still haunts my nightmares. A naked man, covered in scars, walking upside down, like a human spider stuck to the ceiling, smiling with a mouth full of tiny, sharp teeth. He didn't speak, just smiled, and pointed at me. I ran, not because I wanted to, but because my body had already given up fighting logic. I exited the tunnel as if reborn from a nightmare, but the world outside wasn't the same. The sky had unreal blue hues, the trees seemed frozen in time, and the scariest part, the railway had disappeared. Now, a quick but important pause. If you've made it this far, it's because you have courage in your chest. So subscribe to the channel now, not out of obligation, but because the road is only just beginning. And if this story is consuming, you like it did me. Comment below. If you were in Eduardo's place, what would you have done differently? No automatic emojis or liked the video.